Yeah, I think it's recording now. My name is Jaden Rusnak, and I'm doing my snake bio presentation on the Japanese rat snake. I picked this particular snake because I like rat snakes in general, and it's quite frankly, I didn't know they had, rat snake species in Japan, and I thought it'd be pretty cool to kind of do a deep dive into these snakes. And once I, saw a picture of them, they look really cool with their, dark blue colors and all. So I thought it'd be, a cool snake to do for this project. The scientific name for this particular snake is Elphiae climacophora. So let's get on. Okay, can't click. So we'll talk a little bit about the taxonomy of the snake, talk a little about the genus as well. So obviously, like I said, the genus is Elphiae. They are in obviously the order Squamata, and they are known as colubrid snakes, in the family Colubridae. In the subfamily Colubrine, or Colubrinae, Colubrinae. And then the genus is known as the northern rat snakes. And in Japanese, this is the Japanese lettering for the snake, and it's pronounced Ayadashio, if I pronounce that right. I don't really know Japanese. I'm gonna move my thing too here, over here. Might move that again. So the genus Elphiae is the northern rat snakes. So, and this encompasses most of them in the northern hemisphere. Before the 2000s, this also included rat snakes found in North America, but has now been reclassified. So it used to be, I think, like the largest group of rat snakes in the world, but has been reclassified into three different genera. So you have Pantherophis, the North American rat snakes, like your black rat snakes, and I'm pretty sure your corn snakes. And then you have Orthriophis. Orthriophis is the Asian rat snakes. These guys can, intertwine with the ranges of Alphiae and Russia and Asia, but can also be found in parts of India as well. Um, and these northern rat snakes are considered the old world rat snakes, as you would think Pantherophis would be the new world rat snakes. And these guys are found throughout the northern hemisphere, mainly in Asia and Europe. Like I said, used to be other parts. And then most of these species are terrestrial or semi-boreal. A lot of them are generalists, just like the rat snakes that we have in North America. As you'd imagine, any kind of particular traits that our rat snakes have kind of pertains to this genus as a whole, especially, Japanese rat snakes throughout the island of Japan. Okay, I gotta move that again. Okay. Distribution of the Japanese rat snake basically throughout the entire Japanese archipelago and all four of the main islands of Japan. Also, it could be found in the Russian administered Kunashir Island, more north towards Russia. In the four provinces these snakes can be found is known as Hokkaido, Honshu, Kyushu, and Shikoku. And can I even go back? Yeah. And now it works. And these are the islands. Honshu is the central island. More north is Akagio, and then you have Shikoku and Kyushu in southern Japan. So basically, that's the paper where I got that map from is the Moriyama et al. 2018 paper. He kind of went around these four main provinces on the island, the archipelago of Japan, and took genetic samples from snakes he captured. And what he found was that there were two distinct clades, depending on where you caught these snakes at. Um, I think the clade B would be the southern Japanese islands of Kyushu and Shikoku in orange and green. And he didn't do any testing on the Russian Kunishir island snakes, but he did note that these guys were probably also their own clade, since you know there's pretty severe geographic barrier between these snakes and the main island of Japan, obviously the ocean. And he also noted that he found higher or no, lower genetic diversity in the higher latitude. So the more north you go in Japan, I think would be the main island or the province of Hokkaido in the north. And as you can see, there's a lot of different climates throughout Japan. The more north you go, obviously, it's going to be colder and have more, continental climates, as you could say. More southern parts of Japan, in Kyushu and Shikoku, have a humid subtropical climate to even tropical climate. It's very humid there, and a very different set of habitat when compared to, northern Honshu and Hokkaido, especially within the mountain ranges. As you can see, in the mountain ranges in Hokkaido, it could be claimed as a subarctic climate, and as you can see, where the mountain ranges are, there's not a lot of dots where he collected these. So there's a you know, geographic barrier. You can also mention that the more northern um specimens that he caught in Hokkaido had different haplotypes, but he didn't collect enough of the individuals to have to form its own clade. So what are some of the habitats that we'll see from um, throughout the parts of Japan? And what kind of habitats do these snakes kind of inhabit? So they can be found in all sorts of habitats. They're generalists, just like our snakes. So you can find them in grasslands. You can find them in subtropical forests in southern Japanese provinces. These subtropical forests consist of trees like their oaks and their pines. Also, a lot of bamboo forest there. And it is noted that these snakes prefer to stay in forested habitats, but they will go into, grassland and urban habitats. And then these southern Japanese habitats in Kyushu and Shikoku consist of these tropical forests, mostly evergreen, but the more north you go there and throughout the central province of, what was that, Honshu, there are some deciduous forests. You can see where the leaves drop every year, and they love to crawl around in the foliage or the leaf litter on the ground. And they've also been known to be somewhat arboreal and climb up the trees. Try to get to and their habitat behaviors. Um, like I said, these guys are arboreal or semi-arboreal at least, and terrestrial. So they don't mind climbing up a tree and hanging out there or looking for birds' nests for prey. They would definitely consume eggs, just like what you see our black rats do, and they will definitely be around, more urban environments like a lot of rat snakes. I know growing up in my backyard, and I lived in, a suburb that there I saw a bunch of black rat snakes and garter snakes crawling on the garden or in the backyard where it's just fresh cut grass. So anywhere they find mice at, they're perfectly fine living there. But obviously, with these urban habitats, there's a lot less suitable habitat for them to be around and a lot less, natural habitat. So this changes their behavior somewhat. The morphology of the snake, these guys are known to have their typical pale, pale yellow green or darker blue green, that's what they described it in the paper and every website you go on. Depends on where you catch these guys at and what color that they're going to have. So the snakes found on the Russian Kunishar Islands have a bright blue head, and I think they're known as a sky blue morph. It's very popular in the pet trade as it looks beautiful. I think I have some pictures here in the further slides. It's a really cool looking snake. Um, as you can see with this guy right here, he has the yellowish green on top. What I would imagine would match with the forest floor somewhat. There's a lot of mosses that grow in Japan as well. And then on the bottom, on the ventral side, there is this bluish, grayish bluish color that they have. And they also have a dark band across the eye. I think you see better on this slide, across the face, across the eye. Very distinctive characteristic of this snake. And there are also some albino forms known as the Iwakandi white snakes, and I'll talk about that later on down the road. But these snakes are a naturally occurring albino form of these snakes found near the city of Iwakani. So the reproduction of these snakes, the females will reach sexual maturity in around 4 years, which is It's a long time, but I think in terms of snakes, in terms of like case selected species, it's not that long. So you could probably still consider them are selected, just for their behaviors and how well they adapt to urban environments. These guys will mate in the spring, so in the months of April through June, and they'll lay clutches of between 5 and 15 eggs in the summer, between June and August. And with a lot of colubrids, especially rat snakes, they will, as you can see, this guy is on human care, so his behavior might be different, but they will stay wrapped around the snakes, or about wrapped around their eggs for a short period of time, but I don't think they stay around for the entire incubation process. These eggs will hatch in late summer, where the juveniles is kind of, they come out of the egg and they're ready to go, ready to eat. So the juvenile coloration of these snakes is a bit different than their adult forms. You can see here on the left is a juvenile Japanese rat snake found on a walking path, and it has a lot of times they have these dark bands that kind of break up the silhouette of the snake. And scientists, hypothesize, much like our snakes that we have, a lot of juveniles that we have, mimic the species of viper or venomous snakes found in the area. So in the picture on the right, we have a Japanese um, moccasin snake. And you compare the banding on that snake to the juvenile coloration and pattern on the Japanese rat snake. In that snake, on the Japanese moccasin snake, is known as the mamushi in Japanese. That was a pretty cool name. Diet of these snakes is much like our colubrids. They'll eat just about anything that's big enough to fit in their mouth, because they're generalists. Um, not common or not uncommon to see them eat rodents. That's kind of what they're made for. They're rat snakes. Small birds and eggs from nests are still game, as you can see with that black rat snake. Oftentimes you find them in chicken coops eating all your eggs. And then they're also known to eat any lizards or small amphibians that they can catch. And the picture on the right there is a captive bred snake eating a frozen rat. So, what are some of the threats to these snakes and to their populations? Anciently, these snakes have been known to have kind of protection against people. Around here, if someone sees a rat snake, they're chopping his head off. I know my mom, when I brought home a black rat snake, she wanted me to chop his head off because she thought it was venomous or something. But in their culture, at least anciently, they have these religious beliefs that these snakes are sacred and spiritual reasons. So they don't kill them; they kind of just let them be. And r- more in more modern times, this ancient beliefs and these religious beliefs have been declining, mostly to improve agriculture and the economy. And a lot of times, I think there's a program that the government put in place to kill off some of the native wolves that they have there to promote the livestock business. And the same can be said with a lot of other animals and other snake species, where they've kind of been prioritizing, declining or like telling people not to do these religious beliefs to improve this agriculture, so they can, cut down more trees and have more fields. You can see in the bottom picture on there. These guys, or Japan has been kind of booming in the agriculture and, economic industry. And they've kind of just set aside, snakes and their religious beliefs and other animals to boost their economy. There's also threats from invasive parasites from America and from basically they brought over a bunch of American rat snakes or snakes in general, and there's some nematodes that have jumped from them to snails and directly to some of these rat snakes. So they've been finding a lot of invasive parasites, and there is a few studies on them, and I think I mentioned one. I think is it after this? No, it's not after this. Talking about some of these nematodes and how many worms are found on these snakes. On the right there um, is a bottle of whiskey with I think it's a mamushi, so the Japanese moccasin snake. Over 40,000 of these snakes per year are taken from the wild and either for companies who, like to brand their whiskey or I think sake to having a snake in them and it looks cooler. But a lot of times you can see with it being in a Coke bottle, it's kind of the Japanese version of hillbillies making their own moonshine and putting a snake in there because they could sell to tourists and stuff. And there's some medicinal properties that they believe in that the snake gives them. There is a pretty booming pet trade within the herpetocultural scene. As you can see, these snakes are pretty cool looking. As you can see, the blue head and they kind of have this vibrant blue green across their body. So there could be some sort of threat with people taking them from the wild illegally and selling them across seas. And you could see on a lot of the morph websites that there have been breeding of the albino morph of the snake and then the Russian Kunashir Island morph of the snake because of how blue their heads can get. And I'm pretty sure the snake on the right is one of the Kunashir Island colorations of the snake. During the mating months that these snakes have, the head of these Kunashir Island morphs kind of just express this blue color, and they sell for a lot of money on the morph market. If you get a chance, you should go look at them. And then the albino morph found in the Kunashir Islands. I don't think they collected from the wild, as they're protected by the government, but there has been a large breeding circle to sell these snakes, which promotes their conservation a little bit, as you can see it kind of gives light to that these snakes exist to other people and for people to care about them. Because I mean, before I did this, I had no clue that Japan even had rat snakes. Talk a little bit about the conservation of these snakes. As I said before, the religious beliefs have been declining, but up until now, their cultural religious standings and beliefs have somewhat protected the snakes. I can see there's plethora of sculptures that Japan has built across any temples and stuff, where they just kind of respect these snakes due to their religious beliefs and what they did for them in the past in ancient times as these snakes kind of guarded these grain and rice storage facilities from rats. So there is some respect within the people of Japan to protect and just let these snakes be. Efforts have been made to kind of restore and teach the younger generation about these cultural practices and about the importance that these snakes had on their ancestors, which is important for conservation as it has conserved these snakes until now. They've also instituted some construction buffer zones and education about conservation and about, what development does to the environment and how we could protect these snakes. It is still common to see people blaming, I think they blame misfortune and even sometimes deaths on someone killing a snake. So, the religious beliefs are very um, strong in the Japanese people as they are more of a traditional people, as many people see. To summarize the life history of these snakes, they are regarded as a generalist species, just like most other rat snakes. So you could probably consider them are selected due to their somewhat high fecundity. They have 10 to 15 babies per year, and they have a clutch every year. And for them to be able to withstand some of these urban habitats. These guys can be found all throughout the main islands of Japan. They are endemic to Japan, other than the Russian-controlled island, and their primary role in the environment is to control rodent populations. And then they share a lot of qualities with our North American rat snakes. So anything you can think of that our rat snakes, our black rat snakes do around here, these guys probably do. They generally grow, I think, 1 to 2 meters in length, so they're medium-sized snakes. And a lot of their predators include predators that our snakes kind of have, where it's foxes. Invasive raccoons are somewhat a problem for them. Hawks, owls, um, and think I think that's about it. Basically, anything that will eat a snake will probably eat these guys. So to get on to the fun facts, and that's a cool I forget when that painting was made, but I thought it was a cool painting of a snake. So the first fun fact would be the Abercrombie white snake. Mentioned it before, but these there's a lot of articles on them, and they've perceived as a national treasure, and the government made them classified them as a national treasure in 1972. I think that's when it was. Um, they are thought to be highly rare, and they thought that seeing this white snake is believed to bring you good luck, good fortune. A lot of the people believe that they are docile and tame in nature, and that they will not harm humans. And if you look online, there's whole zoos where they just have this albino snakes crawling around in exhibits. And these guys are, naturally occurring albino morphs of these snakes, which I thought was pretty cool. And it's not just like, one here and there. It's like a population of these guys. And the study that I read believed that the high high elevation mountains that surrounds this city has kind of separated this population from other populations of snakes. So it caused this, this gene to express due to these geographic barriers, which limits the uh, the gene flow from other populations to this population, which kind of allowed this albino morph to take place. In ancient times, they were respected because they kept away rats and rodents from the grain facilities. So that's kind of where they get this perspective belief of snakes in general. Snakes kind of guard their food. So there is some tie to ancient times and religious beliefs. And I think the next one is talking about parasites. So these guys have a lot of parasites. I read the paper talking about a specific nematode that's only found in these albino Japanese rat snakes, where they looked at 104 of these snakes and dissected them. Now, they did not go around, killing 104 Japanese rat snakes just for this study, but they took it from a museum in what was that? Ibukani, the museum in Ibukani, um, and they dissected them and they counted out every single nematode or worm in each snake, which I thought it must have been very tedious for whatever grad student they had to do that because it's a lot of worms per snake. Um, and they found an average of 209 worms in every snake that they found. And down there on the left is the diagram of this nematode. And I mean, that's it. That's all I got to say about these snakes. It was cool doing, a deep dive into these snakes. I read a paper on how the Fukushima disaster, nuclear disaster, the power plant that, got shut down because of the tsunami. It was interesting to read, how the nuclear radioactive landscape impacts the um, habitat choices and behavioral choices of these snakes. They basically did a radio telemetry study of them and a growth recapture rate. So kind of the same things we did with Nuridiocipodon down in North Fork, which I thought was interesting. They found that I think what was it? The snakes stayed away from open habitats mainly and stayed mainly in the forest, and they did not like whether it was a short broadleaf evergreen trees. And they kind of stuck to the forest, which they noted that, and this is the only study done on the behavioral habitat choices of these snakes. So they noted that it could have been because of the radioactive environment that changed the behavior of the snakes, or it could just be this is what their natural behavior are. I will say there's not a lot of research done on the snakes. There's only a handful of journal articles, but I thought it was still a cool snake to learn about, and I kind of respect the Japanese culture as they have their traditional beliefs and they kind of just let the animals be. You can see that with the The Japanese giant hellbender, I think, is Cryptobranchus japanicus, where that certain species of hellbender is protected by the people. It's, they kind of protect the species, and then the similar to this, I want to say sister species found in China, I forget the scientific name for that. That species have become more threatened because the Chinese don't have as much as these natural religious beliefs for these animals. So they kind of harvest them for food instead of, let them be like Japan does. So I thought it was really cool doing a deep dive on these snakes. If you have any questions about them, feel free to let me know, email me. I can shoot you some of these journal articles that I read. I think that's about it. See you guys later. I gotta stop. I gotta find out how to stop recording.